Hello and welcome back to the Good Wife podcast. My name is Rachel. I am your host, and today I am doing this by myself for the very first time. If you're new here, you stumbled across this channel, welcome. This channel has conversations, or we create content around marriage, relationships, being a woman, and life in general, as well as faith. We have lots of faith conversations. And if that's something that you are interested in, you are in the right place. So please consider making this your home, your content of choice. I know many of us spend a lot of time on YouTube, and it would be nice to make this one of your subscriptions. I would really appreciate it. To the regulars, welcome back. Thank you so much for your feedback. You guys, I see your feedback. I really do, and I appreciate it very, very much. I see the women who are not yet married and are believing God for marriage and are learning, and I think this is a step in the right direction. If marriage is something that you want, I think it's only right and prudent that you are preparing for that space. Some of us didn't prepare, and you have heard our stories. We didn't really prepare because we thought we knew how to be wives, we thought we knew how to be husbands. And marriage showed us that nobody knows how to be a wife. You know, you get in there, you get equipped, you surround yourself with the right community, and then you succeed, or at least you make significant steps towards succeeding. So I'm really happy that there are ladies on this platform that are not yet married. Some of you are engaged, others are in relationships, but you are learning a thing or two about marriage and about this space, about family. I also see the men. I'm really, really excited when I see the men because marriage takes two people. It takes a wife, takes a husband, a man, a woman. And so if everybody's kind of doing their best to learn, to get equipped, to get knowledge, understanding, then I believe that families are going to go to the next level. And so I really, really appreciate it. I can't respond to all the feedback, but I see it. And I go back home, I sleep with a full heart. Not because I'm receiving praise, because I don't live for that. God knows if He told me stop doing this channel, I would be the happiest. Because this space is not me naturally. I am an introvert. I like to keep to myself. I'm the sort of person who, if I knew how to shoot, I would be behind the camera. But somehow God ordered my steps to being in front of the camera, and out of obedience, I said, you know what? My life is not my own. Let me use my experiences and my skill, because I am a broadcaster by profession, to bring this information to you, my experiences to you, conversations from other couples, other women, other men, to you, so that your lives can be more meaningful. The goal of this channel is to help you live a more meaningful life, a life that is more impactful, a life that is significant. I think in the midst of chasing a career or being distracted by, let's say, a heartbreak or something that has gone wrong in your life, we miss the big picture, you know. And I think God wants us to live lives that are purposeful, that are intentional, and that can then bless the next generation. You know, what are your grandchildren or great-grandchildren going to say about you? And the only way you can do that is if you're constantly learning, if you're constantly evolving, if you're growing, and not staying in the same place and just, you know, staying focused on what is happening in that moment. And so the goal really is for us to live more meaningful lives, to have more purposeful lives, to be impactful in the spaces that God has given us. And I do that through conversation. I don't know any other way. So I'm not going to sit here and give you facts about marriage or facts about being a woman. There are other people who are great at that. I love to have conversations. I did say I'm an introvert, so I have conversations with specific people. But when I find that person, or when I find that couple, and I draw from their wisdom, I am like, you guys, I think someone else can benefit from this. And so I feel like it's the best of both my worlds coming together. I'm a broadcaster, and then I love having conversations. And I feel like so much can be learned from having conversations with people, learning from people's experiences. You know, you might be going through a situation in your life. Actually, have you ever wondered when you hear someone's story and you've been complaining about your own, and you hear someone else's story and you're like, maybe I don't have big problems, you know? So it kind of shifts your perspective. It gives you better perspective about life. It helps you to be grateful. I think in conversation, we learn how to be grateful about our own lives, but also about other people's experiences, because we're able to learn from them, maybe without necessarily walking the same path that they have. And so I find that for me, I learn most from conversations. And we are so blessed in our era today that we have these conversations in the palms of our hands. You have your gadget, you have your tab, you have your screen, you're able to log into YouTube, check out podcasts and hear from people. Back in the day, I don't even know how it was, but I can't imagine having a challenge and maybe you have to jump onto a bus to go and see cousin so-and-so who lives, I don't know how many kilometers away from you, or auntie so-and-so who lives so far away from you, to get help, And so we're really we're blessed in this era that we have this information in the palm of our hands. Of course, the digital era comes with its pros and cons, but if you can use it for good, you can find that your life will change. So that's what The Good Wife is about. Like I said, my name is Rachel. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, and I would like to think that I'm influencing somebody who is watching this channel, and that's something that I thank God for every single day. So today on the show, like I said, I'm doing it by myself. I wanted to reflect on the year 2024. So the year is coming to a close. We only have a few weeks before we celebrate the new year, 2025. And as I have grown older, I realize the importance of reflection. Naturally, I am introspective, so I take so much time to reflect. I think the one thing that I need to start doing a bit more seriously is journaling, because as I was thinking about this show, I was like, man, I feel like I've been through so much. I have learned so much. I have grown so much, but I don't really have a record of it. Some of it is in my subconscious. Some of it is still in my heart, and I'm still drawing from it. But those of you who journal, you really are blessed, because then you can go back and refer to the things that you've been through, the things that God is teaching you, and the things that you are learning. So 2025, one of my goals is to start journaling. I know I've probably said that for the last 3 or 4 years, but I'm going to try my best in 2025. So I thought we would reflect back on the year 2024 and what that has been like, what I have learned, some of the challenges that I have experienced, and what I have learned from those challenges. So if you could quickly type in the comment section, what has 2024 been like for you? Just maybe one word or 2 words. I think for me, I would describe it as stretched or stretching. I feel like I have really been stretched this year. And when I hosted Angie, she said that sometimes we say we have been stretched in a particular year, but then we move to the next year and we're like, man, I feel like I've been stretched some more. So I guess there's no end to the stretching. There's no end to the breaking and building. But if I'm to think back to 2024, I think for me the word would be stretched. But I feel like in the stretching, there has also been strengthening. Again, perspective. Because sometimes you can just focus on the stretching and forget that you have actually become a better person, or you have actually become a bolder, whatever it is that you want to become. And I think there's a lot of growth that happens when we are stretched. So let's dial back to the beginning of 2024. When we started the year, a little story time. Bump Love, which is the show that I was part of, as part of the Bump Love cast, was going through a transition. Of course, as the shows were rolling out, the transition was happening behind the scenes. So between the 5 of us ladies, we had a good thing going. And at the time we made the decision to leave, the show was doing very well. The show was doing good. Our numbers were growing. And I think as individuals, we were also growing and evolving. But what happened is at the start of the year, each one of us, because we each had our dreams, our aspirations, our convictions, we made the hard decision to go our separate ways. And while that was very hard news for our audience, I think it made sense for those of us who were actually creating the content. When I tell you guys, creating content is not for the faint-hearted. While you guys enjoy us coming every single day and bearing our souls and telling you, oh, I did this, oh, we did this, oh, this is what happened to me and this is how I have grown, it's very hard. It's exhausting. It demands so much from the individual. And it takes sacrifice. And that's not to say that I'm complaining. I'm just saying that it takes a lot for people to come in front of a camera and start talking about their lives or start talking about their marriages or their relationships. And so with all of that in mind and with, looking forward, we made the hard decision to leave. One of the things I appreciated about the show and the cast is that we celebrated our individuality. We were very diverse and very different, and that's what made the show rich. But because we are also diverse and very different, we all have different paths. The things that Pumla wants to do, she wants to do because she's passionate about them. Same with Angie. You saw her on The Good Wife and the things that she's into now. With Rosette, building her business. And of course with Manuela as well, who started Bump Love, still continuing with that path and the other things that she's passionate about. And so somehow it came full circle at the beginning of the year that, I think it's time. It's time for us to go our separate ways. And that transition meant that I needed to figure out what my next steps were. Now, I have talked about wanting to start this channel for a very long time. Even while I was on the Bump Love set, I kept saying, guys, I need to do my own thing. I need to do my own thing. It was such a heavy conviction for me that I needed to start my own space where I could have the conversations that I'm passionate about, host the people that I wanted to have these conversations with. And so while I knew I was working in my timing, in my season to say, look, I've done very well with Bump Love. It's time for me to leave. I also had a bit of a fear and a panic, like, okay, so you're leaving, but please note that now you're running out of excuses. Because before it was like, I'm shooting Bump Love. I don't think I can shoot more than one show at the same time. I don't even have money. I had so many excuses. And so I left. And when we left, I was happy to have walked in obedience and stepped away from the show. But now I was faced with, you have wanted to do this for a very long time. Now is the time. Because when this year ends and you haven't done the thing that you were supposed to do, what is going to be your excuse? And the thing about God, for those of you who subscribe to God, is that when he asks you to do something and you don't do it, he's at liberty to find someone else to do it. Yeah? Can I get a witness? If you know what I'm talking about, type in the comment section. He will find somebody else to do it because he's not short of resources. So if he has entrusted you with something, then it's important that you follow through. And that thing used to keep me up at night and be like, oh my gosh, please don't find somebody else. I want to do this. I'm just waiting for the right time. So that transition really stretched me. Emotionally, sometimes I struggle with anxiety, and I hate saying that sometimes because the Bible says not to be anxious about anything. But that transition of, okay, you're leaving Bump Love, you're leaving something that you have been doing for the last 5 years, something that you have built. Are you sure this is the right thing for you to do? And there are some days when I was sure, there were other days when I wasn't. And so that stretched me in a way that I've never, ever experienced. And of course, having several conversations with the ladies, this is what is happening, this is what we are going to do. I don't like difficult conversations. I think I have made that abundantly clear for those of you who have been following me. I don't like difficult conversations. I hate conversations about confrontation. I just hate being in uncomfortable spaces and seasons of my life. But those are the seasons where we grow the most. And so after a series of difficult conversations, we finally left. And so now I'm faced with, you have to start this thing. And somehow when I surrendered, which is something I want to talk about, and said, Lord, I'm ready to start now. Bring me the resources. Show me when to start. Show me what to talk about. Show me who to have on the channel. One thing led to another. And I think it was in September when we started. Must have been, no, October. I think early October. When I released the first episode, I was working with another producer at the time. And God led me to this studio. This is TCN Studios, by the way. I know I've never talked about it. And all of you are like, oh my gosh, the set. Some people even think it's my home. No, it's not my home. I was telling someone yesterday that, no, my home is going to look better. But TCN Studios is the Cooking Nurse Studios. If you follow the Cooking Nurse on Instagram, this is where she shoots her content. And the person behind the TCN Studios is very, very, very involved with the Cooking Nurse. I'm saying a lot, aren't I? I'll stop there. But yes, my show is produced by TCN Studios, and I can't tell you how comfortable I am. You know, I think there's something to be said about finding the right people to work with, finding the right content, finding the right support in the right time. And this is home for me. I feel very comfortable. I feel like, okay, God, you have really answered my prayers. And here I am creating this content that you asked me to create. And people are being blessed by it. The feedback is amazing, which is why I started by sharing the feedback. And I'm really happy with the future of the show. I don't know where this show is going to end, but I'm really glad that I obeyed. And the year has not ended before I started this channel, because I would have been beside myself in 2025. And who knows, maybe someone else would be creating this content. And that's not to say that there aren't other people who are talking about marriage. They're there. I think there's a space for all of us to grow and to thrive and to impact families, because that's the end goal. So that was the beginning of the year. And I think that season lasted maybe like the first 4 or 5 months of 2024. The other thing, and maybe if I could just talk about what I feel like I've been learning, is the art of surrender. And so I have no particular order. They'll all kind of feed into each other. And so bear with me. Sometimes that's how my mind thinks, very jumbled up things, but in the end, they all make sense. So I think one of the things that God has been teaching me this year is the value of surrender. Again, because we are in the rat race, we are pursuing careers, we are pursuing businesses, we are trying to stay afloat in our marriages, you know, and on top of that, you have friends who are depending on you, you have family that's depending on you. Sometimes it's easy to think that you're doing all of this in your own strength, you know, that if I don't hold this thing together, it's going to fall apart. And yet it's really not up to you. You do have a part to play in staying organized, in prioritizing and in planning and in all of that. But it's not your job to keep everything together. It's not your job to make sure that your relationship doesn't fall apart. It's not your job to make sure that your husband stays in line or your wife stays in line. That is up to God. And I think when we stop fighting, when we stop striving, when we stop trying to control things and genuinely surrender them to God, then He takes over and begins to order your steps. You know, never in a million years did I think, I didn't know Agre. Sorry, Agre, I keep pointing at you. I didn't know who Agre was. I knew the Cooking Nurse, and I always thought, oh, her content is really great. But there's so many people on Instagram and on, you know, social media who have really great content, you know, and it's shot very well. It's curated very well. But I was like, Lord, I need somebody to work with. I need somebody who can shoot my content. I don't want to buy equipment. I don't think that's what you're calling me to do. And so for me to just see how the entire year has unfolded and for me to be where I am today is really born out of surrender. It's saying, Lord, I don't know what to do. I need you to lead me. I need you to guide me. Show me the right people. Show me the right spaces to go to. And then boom, here we are. You know, without me having to say, oh, I need to make phone calls. I need to figure out. No, none of that. So I think we need to come to a place, and hopefully this can be your goal for 2025, that we stop fighting. Let's stop striving. Let's stop trying to do things in our own strength. Not everything has to be addressed in the time that it's happening. Not everything has to be addressed, period. You know, sometimes you experience things, and now I'm talking generally in your relationships, at the workplace, and you feel the need to address the issue because you have been wronged, because you have been offended, you know. And so I think surrender all around in every area of your life is just saying, Lord, just show me what to do today. How do I live today? How do I handle the things, the challenges that I face today? How do I interact with the people at the workplace? There's that difficult boss. There's that difficult workmate. My husband is being difficult. I don't know how to deal with him. Help me, show me. And as sure as the sun comes up every single day, God is faithful. He will support you. He will help you. He will show you what to do, enable you to say the right thing at the right time, because I've experienced it in my life. So that's on the value of surrender. The other thing that I feel like God has been teaching me, and this has been a tough one, is to embrace the messiness of life. And I'm going to allude to an experience that I shared on the Chitakas podcast. If you haven't watched it, please look out for it. Maybe we'll provide the link in our description box. I talked about an experience that I had with my husband where he made a decision that I thought was not good for the family, and it was causing us even more trouble. I didn't really expound on what I did and like what my process was, but I want to talk a bit about it now to kind of make the point that I am making on embracing the messiness of life. And sometimes just sitting there with your thing, with your mess, you know. I don't know if you notice toddlers, for those of you that have children, there are some toddlers who don't like when they soil their diapers, they don't want to sit in it. You know, they are crying, they are fussing. It's like, mommy, you need to figure out how to get me out of this. And then there are some toddlers who they can go another 1 hour. They've soiled their diaper, but they're running around there until they get to a point and they're like, okay, I'm done. So that's always the picture, the mental picture that comes to mind. But when this experience happened with my husband, and God told me, you're not going to address it now, because now you're very angry, you're feeling very, justified, and you want to address this issue, because if you do address it, you are not going to get the desired goal of reconciliation, but also you might do more harm than good. So just sit in it for a while. And it was one of those things where I couldn't even call up a friend, because I'm those people. I don't like being in uncomfortable situations. Again, refer back to what I have said. So if I can avoid something, if I can remove those bad feelings, I know my people who feel a lot. You understand what I'm saying? When I start to feel away, like I don't like this feeling. I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling angry. I need to do something about it. What can I do? And so I find myself in situations like that where I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? Should I call a friend? Should I watch something on YouTube to take my mind? I always want a solution. And I feel like God was showing me, sit in it for a while, because then I'm going to show you what to do, or I'll order your steps in terms of what you need to do and how you need to address this thing. And so I remember going home that day. I sat in the car and I was in tears. I was crying. My heart was so heavy. And my prayer to God was like, Lord, I don't know how much longer I can do this. Yeah. I was saying, I can't deal. And now you're telling me I can't even address it. So what do you want me to do? You need to be the one to show me what to do. Comfort me. I don't know. Show me. Do something. Help me. And I opened my Bible. And I'm going to read the scripture that God gave me. It's in Hebrews chapter 10, verse 35. I think it's 35 to 36. This scripture has been such an anchor, not just for that experience, but like for the rest of the year. And it says, so do not throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded. You need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what he has promised. Verse 37 says, for in just a little while, he who is coming will come and will not delay. Now, the verses before that also spoke to me, but in particular 35 to 37, you need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what he has promised. And again, I'm in tears. I'm like, Lord, I don't understand what this means. Okay, I get persevere. Persevere means hang in there. It means keep going. It means don't give up, It's almost like when you are running a marathon. I'm not a runner. I'm not even an athlete, so I wouldn't know. But I get the sense that when you are running, you get to a point where you are almost giving up, like you're tired. And so that picture was, I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I don't know how much longer I can keep hanging on. I don't know how much longer I can keep at this without giving up. And so perseverance for me was the picture, and I was like, okay, show me someone in the Bible who persevered. Of course, there are many examples, but the one God led me to in that moment, which by the way brought me so much comfort, I can't even explain it, was Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. When he was facing death, the soldiers were coming for him, and it was time for him to face the cross. And the Bible says that he sweated blood. Like the anguish was that much that blood came out of his pores. And so the prayer that Christ made in that moment was, Lord, if it's possible, take this cup of suffering from me, which in essence is the kind of prayer I was saying. I'm like, Lord, I can't do this anymore. Please take this away. Please take this away. And so that's the picture that came to mind. But the prayer that Christ made, he said, if it's possible, take this cup of suffering from me. And then he says, yet not my will, but yours be done. When I read that, I was like, okay, so if Christ did it, surely I can, I really can. And I think that if there was grace for Christ in that moment, there's grace for me now. And I remember going maybe 3 or 4 days before that issue was addressed. And I wasn't talking to anyone except to the one who had given me the scripture. That's how I was receiving my comfort. And I received a supernatural strength that even I can't explain to this day, that enabled me go through that season without calling a friend. And I'm not saying friends are not valuable. They really are. Community is valuable. But in that moment, I had instructions to sit in the mess. And I think sometimes when you are going through things, because life, Dr. Eva's the one I do a show with, Reality Check. Please subscribe to Reality Check. She always says that human beings were created to look for pleasure. We're created to enjoy pleasure. That's our default. So when something terrible happens, we are going to quickly figure out how to get out of that terrible situation and live a better life and go back to pleasure, go back to enjoying life, go back to enjoying your friends, go back to enjoying your marriage, whatever it is. But here I was, and I feel like God was trying to teach me something, that you don't have to run to people all the time. Or in that moment. Sometimes I want to guide you. Sometimes I want to show you what to do. I want to strengthen your inner witness so that in this moment, okay, because if I had talked to a friend, I'm sure the friend would have told me, you need to address this with your husband, which is logical because a thing had happened and I needed to address it. But I like that God led me himself. And I think there are going to be times in your life where it doesn't matter how great of a support system you have. Sometimes you need to learn to lean into the support that is beyond you. But in order for you to do that, it requires you sitting and embracing and saying, you know what? Life sucks right now. It's terrible, this thing that is happening. Maybe my husband wants to leave me or my wife has left. My marriage is on the rocks. I have no job. I've had a miscarriage. I'm dealing with infertility. I don't know what it is because there's so many issues that we face every single day. Sometimes God just needs us to be still. And in being still, you're able to hear his voice saying, here is the way, walk in it. You're able to hear him direct you. Here is how I want you to pray. You're able to hear him say, maybe you should call that friend, that other one that you have not spoken to in a long time. They have something to tell you that will help you feel better in this season or will give you wisdom in this season. And so throughout the rest of the year, I found myself in different scenarios where before I picked up the phone, I'm like, Lord, what do you want me to do? How do I handle this? Am I perfect yet? No. There are certain things which I only talk about, but I have not even prayed about. And so for me, it's a journey. I'm learning that I need to rely on God. And I think that takes me to the third thing that I have learned is that we've really placed so much importance on human opinion, prioritized it over what God says, prioritized it over asking God. God is the author of wisdom. He has so much wisdom, enough to give everybody without finding fault. That's what he says in the Bible. Whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, whether you went to school, whether you didn't go to school, as long as you ask him for wisdom, he's going to give it to you. But I think often we are quick to run to YouTube. Because YouTube has solutions for all sorts of things. They'll show you how to build a house. They'll show you how to cook. They'll show you how to talk to your husband. They'll show you how to talk to your wife, how to parent. Like there's so much human wisdom, and bless God for it. But I think we have kind of shut out the voice of God in pursuit of human wisdom. And again, that's something that I feel like God has been challenging me on, which I'm bringing to you as well. So for you to evaluate yourself, because like I said at the beginning, we're reflecting together. Where have you prioritized human wisdom or human opinions, including your own, by the way? And I'm talking about things like even what you think of yourself. You know, some of you are walking around and you think you don't deserve good things in life. You don't deserve a good marriage. Maybe you're going through a terrible one and you have kind of blamed yourself for it. It's human wisdom includes your own, because you have an opinion about life, you have an opinion about yourself, and you have prioritized that over what God says about you. And so my encouragement to you, even as you start 2025, is to check yourself first and then see the areas where on this particular issue, I am usually quick to run for a solution elsewhere. And on this particular issue, I have no problem praying about this, you know. So check yourself and then make a conscious decision and effort to always go to God first. Ask him what you want him to do. More likely than not, he's going to send you to another human being. So it's just better that you start with him, because you might end up asking the wrong person or talking to the wrong person, who then will create another problem. Then you will go back to God, and it's just a terrible cycle. So I think that's one of the other things that God has been showing me. At the start of the year, I think one of the goals that I had was to sharpen my ear. Like, am I actually hearing from God, or am I just hearing from men of God or women of God? When I reconnected with God back in 2021, I watched so many sermons. At that time, I was really happy YouTube existed. I watched so many sermons. I was jumping from preacher to preacher. And that expedited my growth. It expedited my desire and, you know, my desire for God and for the things of God. But then they quickly became a thing that I leaned on, you know, and it's like, oh, I'm going to wake up in the morning and watch this sermon. And so I wasn't sharpening my ability to hear from God for myself, you know, and that was in every area of my life, whether it was career or my marriage or just my life as an individual. And so at the start of this year, that's what God challenged me to do. So just a few weeks ago, I was evaluating myself like, okay, so how far have I come? Of course, I still have a long way to go. I still watch some sermons. But I landed on a video that was talking about some of the things that you need to do in order for you to hear God. And I mean, I agreed with all of them. I hope I can remember them. But the ones that stood out for me, I think, were overthinking, because that's something that I struggle with. Guys, I can think and create a scenario in my head that grows wings and legs, and it goes to Ginger and comes back, and then goes to Mbale, and then comes back to Kampala, goes like, I can think about a thing and milk it and squeeze all the juice out of it until I am paralyzed. And like now I can't even move. I can't make a decision. And that's like now where decision making is. I overthink about, even in my relationships, like, oh my gosh, that friend of mine said this thing. What did they mean? Do they mean that am I rude? Was I disrespectful? Oh my God. My thoughts are definitely a hindrance in my life, not just even in hearing God. I think even in my relationships, my mind is always in overdrive. And so this lady was saying that one of the things that hinders us from hearing from God is overthinking. And so, because what happens is you drown out the noise of the Holy Spirit, you drown out the noise of God, because your thoughts are what are leading you, and that's what you're focusing on. And so overthinking was definitely something that I want to work on, or I have been working on. The other thing that she said was doing too much, you know, just you have this program, you have this event, you're emceeing here, and then you're meeting friends here. Of course, we live in a very busy era. Like, our lives are busy. We're constantly talking about adulting and joking about it. We have so many responsibilities. But sometimes doing so much, you become very busy. You are not able to sit and be still. And so that's one thing that I want to work on in the coming year. Just learning to do enough. Learning to do enough. In the episode that I had with Doris, I hope you have watched it. If you haven't, please do watch it. She talked about again, the whole we are busy. You know, somebody calls you, they're like, I think you would be perfect for this job. I think you would be perfect for this role. I think you would be perfect for this gig. And because this person is close to you, they're part of your network, you're compelled to say yes. And before you know it, you have an entire month, you have something to do every weekend. And there is no time for you to just sit and be quiet and be still. And I mean, it's not just hearing from God, but I think that's one of the things that hinders us from being effective, doing too much. You don't have to be everywhere. You don't have to do everything. So just sitting and being still. The other thing is being judgmental of people. That really struck a chord with me because I think that as Christians, as people in general, we always think of ourselves maybe better than others. We think that I don't do that, therefore I am better than the other person. And I think that that's something that God has been convicting me about. And I don't think it pleases God. The Bible talks about not judging or not being judgmental, because we are all in need of grace. We're all in need of a savior. So I am learning not to judge people because everybody is on a journey. Everyone is on a path. And if their path, there are still, moments where they fall, then my job is to pray for them and to support them, in that area of their lives, even as they figure things out, but not to think I am better than somebody else. And unfortunately for us, social media gives us such a huge platform to judge because people are putting their lives out there. Somebody bought a car recently, someone bought a house, and we're not genuinely happy for people because, where did she get the money from? Or how is it that they have that car? Or they think they're better than us? Or why do they talk like that, And so I think for me, it's in saying everybody is on a journey. And my job really is to pray and to help where I can and to be genuinely happy for people when they have their successes or their victories. So those are the three that stood out for me. She talked a lot about also spending a lot of time in entertainment. Like I said, guys, I struggle with YouTube because once I get onto the channel, once I get onto the platform, I can watch videos on home improvement. I enjoy videos on food and cooking. I like makeover videos, like how they show you a house that is incomplete or a house that was very, very dirty and messy and somebody completely transforms it. And I'm like, wow, look at the change. I watch, of course, podcasts and conversations, interviews a lot. And so sometimes you find that by the time the day ends, you have fed yourself on so much that you have no way of hearing God. You have no way of sharpening your spirit because you already have so much in your spirit. So that's something I am challenging myself in 2025 to just be mindful of the things that I watch and not to spend too much time, on YouTube and only use it for the things that are going to edify me. And then of course the big thing about, reading the Bible and spending time in the Word and meditating is definitely a step in the right direction if you want to hear God for yourself. So those are my reflections from 2024. I am curious to hear yours. I could go on and on about the things that I have learned. I'm not going to belabor the points that I have shared, but I really would like to hear from you. What has 2024 been like for you? Do let me know in the comment section. I enjoy reading your comments. I enjoy seeing your feedback. So let me know what has stood out for you in this year. And maybe what are your aspirations for 2025? What are some of those things that you want to do better? For me, this really has been personal growth. There are so many other areas and facets of my life, so many achievements, things that I have been able to do, like this channel. Hello. I am so grateful that I was able to start, and many other things that, I'm thankful for. So let me know what your aspirations are for 2025. What are those areas that you want to grow in? I do have goals for my marriage. Oh yes, one thing that I want to talk about, before I close, in the area of marriage. I remember Ben and I getting to a place where we had kind of plateaued. We were in a season of our lives where we were okay. We were not fighting. Like, we didn't have issues per se, like we used to in the beginning years of our marriage. But then I was like, I also don't feel like we're growing either. There was just that I don't want to use the word stale, but it's the one that comes to mind right now. We were just there. We are cool. We're fine. We're going about our business. We go to work every single day. We come back, talk a bit about our day, talk a bit about our calendars, like what are the things that are coming up? How do I need to show up for you? How do you need to show up for me? And that would be it. And so I remember having, again, like I said, I'm very reflective, I'm very introspective, and I know Kemi laughs at me for this, but I asked myself, I was like, okay, if we are okay, then why do I feel like we are not? Like why do I feel like there's something that's missing, And as I thought and I reflected and I prayed, I said, God, please show me what is happening here, because I'm not getting it. We seem to be fine, but at the same time, we are not. There was just a blandness. I think, how you eat food and it's not like spiced. It's good food, but it can be better. That's how I felt. And I remember having a conversation with our best man, who I'm going to host on this channel, and we can talk through all the things that, we experienced in the early years of our marriage and how we ended up picking him. And he was telling me, in those moments, you really need to work harder to grow and like get yourself out of that space, because it's very easy then to, how they say couples become sister and brother, or you guys just become familiar with each other, and marriage just becomes that thing that you are in. You are a Mrs. So-and-so, he's a Mr. So-and-so, and you show up for events, you show up for family, but like there is no spark, there's no joy. It's just, we're here. So as I prayed about it, I think God brought it to my attention that you guys are not growing. You're not any different than you were 2-3 years back, which is when the significant change happened in our marriage. So when we received that leap of, oh my gosh, our marriage is changing, I'm changing, Ben is changing, we're having such a good time, we're no longer fighting, we're no longer disagreeing, like things are good. We stayed in that state, and we were not doing anything deliberate to grow, anything deliberate to connect, to build on our intimacy. And through that reflection, of course, I had a conversation with Ben, and, he felt the same way. We decided we were going to do date night every single week. And I'm here to say that we've actually been consistent with our date night. I say that, it seems like a small thing, but again, back to the busyness of life. But also, if you're not committed to a thing, it dies, but we committed to it. And so we meet for date night. I'm not going to say when we meet, but we meet for date night every week. And it's something that we look forward to, Ben and I, because then we're able to have conversations. Because I would get to a point where I'm like, okay, we talk once in a while, but it's not deliberate. And so when we meet for date night, it's like, oh, we are catching up. Like that friend that you see every week, that's me and my husband. So we meet every week, we have conversations. So he will tell me about the things that are happening at work. I'll tell him about, the stuff that is happening at work as well. Some of the things that I wanted to talk to him about at length that I haven't had a chance to. And we do it over a meal sometimes. And yeah, we go back home with our hearts full, and I guess another new lease of life added to our relationship. And so I don't know what your marriage goals are. Whatever they are, I hope that they are materialized in 2025. Of course, there are people who watch and it's like, oh, you can say that because you and your husband, you seem aligned. It wasn't always like this. So my encouragement to you is, even though you're not aligned with your spouse for whatever reason, some reasons big, others small, just pray about it. Take it to God in prayer and say, Lord, this is what I would want to see in my marriage. This is what I would want to experience with my husband, what I would want to experience with my wife. And just watch him order your steps. He will show you what to do and lead you in that thing that you desire. So I just I don't know how I forgot to talk about that, but when I was thinking about the different facets of my life, I was like, oh, but there's the marriage issue. And that's just one of the things that I feel like Ben and I have grown in when it comes to 2024. So again, please tell me what your 2024 has been and what your 2025 will look like, or at least what you aspire to, what you're looking forward to. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. Thank you to the subscribers, to those of you that keep coming back to watch this content. I appreciate you more than you know. More than you know. Keep subscribing. Do give this channel a thumbs up if this is the content that you like, and share this with a friend, a family member, someone who you think might find it useful. Happy 2025. I wish you all a lovely, productive, meaningful 2025. Until next week, bye-bye. Who knew I had all those words?